All right, now there's a proposed law in the UK that's making some waves, and it looks like it might pass. It would give one of Britain's national security agencies the power to monitor all phone calls, texts, emails, and online activities, all in the name of, quote, investigating serious crime and terrorism to protect the public. Now, this is interesting because it means internet companies would be required to install a special kind of hardware that would give the agency the ability to access who an individual or group is in contact with, how long, and how frequently. Now, they would still need a warrant to gain access to the content of the emails and phone calls. But still, this is causing quite a stir. Aaron Swartz is the founder and executive director of Demand Progress. Aaron, let's talk about this. I mean, this sounds a whole lot to me like the U.S. Patriot Act. Is that essentially what we're seeing here?
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar. Like the Patriot Act, there's not a lot of details in the proposal, and like the Patriot Act, it's going to allow the government to put these boxes in that allow them to make full copies of pretty much all the internet traffic that's going back and forth on British government servers. And so another thing like the Patriot Act is they say they're only using it to look at who you're talking to and where the data is coming from. But the fact is, once you put these boxes in, once the government gets a copy of everything you're visiting on the internet, every email you're sending, who knows what they're doing with it? And we've seen in the US that the government has all these classified programs to make other uses of the data that they refuse to disclose exactly what they are.
And I know that there was a similar proposal in Britain back in 2006, but there was so much opposition that it was canned. So I'm wondering, I mean, why do you think, they changed? Why are they bringing this back up? What's different now?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like the Patriot Act, they had to wait for a major terrorist attack before they could push through this sort of thing in the United States. But I think what's happening is, the government in Britain has shifted. Previously, it was under the Labour Party, and so left-wing activists and people on the left who protested it were able to have some influence. Now we have this sort of conservative and Lib Dem coalition whose support levels are already extremely low. They probably figure they can't alienate anybody else, so they might as well push through their wish list of civil liberties trampling policies.
And, just going off what you said, I mean, you said it took 9/11 to sort of push through the Patriot Act here. Let's not forget that lasted for 10 years, and that was reinstated as law here. So I guess I'm just wondering, I mean, what do you think? Is there some sort of international opinion that the Patriot Act is effective and really good?
Well, I think there's an international opinion among governments everywhere that it's nice to spy on your citizens. I mean, who doesn't like the power to listen in on people's emails, to look at what web pages people visit? Every government loves the ability to do that. And so what we see is, these authoritarian forces within every government looking for opportunities where they can increase their power, increase the scope of what they can look at, and pass laws like this one.
Now, it's hard to say, of course, neither of us have a crystal ball, but I'm wondering, I just want to get your take, because this is obviously a cause that you believe in. I mean, what are some of the ways in which this can backfire? What are some of the most detrimental ways that this can harm the citizens of, Great Britain and the United States?
Well, I think, it's an enormous threat to privacy, both, on a big scale with the government looking over everyone's shoulder, but also on a small one. The fact is, just technically, to make these sort of things happen, they are making copies of everyone's emails, copies of everyone's internet traffic. All it takes is one rogue government employee or a rogue person who set up the equipment. They can start spying on their girlfriends. They can, there's all sorts of misbehavior that can get into, even at this small level. And you can imagine at higher levels of government, imagine Nixon was president still. I'm sure he would be using this kind of stuff to track his political enemies, to dig up dirt about them and leak embarrassing information to the press.
And there's organizations like yours, Aaron, and quite a few others. But the bottom line is we still haven't seen a lot of people really openly oppose the Patriot Act here, and it looks to me in Great Britain that this law is going to pass there. So what do you think is the reason that a lot of people are not standing up and saying, wait a minute, this is a very bad thing?
Well, I think a part of it is certainly the mainstream media. The Patriot Act did not get a lot of discussion. It was rushed through without a debate. And even when it came up for renewal 10 years later, like you said, the media still didn't cover it as a story. It occasionally gets discussed here and there as a sort of excess of the Bush administration, but there's been very little ongoing coverage of exactly what it does and what it means. And so people just don't know how much it's trampling on their rights, and they don't know when they can take action to stop it. These moments like Patriot Act renewal or like this bill going on in the UK, They receive coverage on networks like this one, but the vast majority of the mainstream media is too busy hacking into voicemails and things like that to cover these important civil liberties stories.
Well, it seems interesting, though, because, like you said, I can see why a lot of top government officials might enjoy that power. But when you talk about the media, mainstream or alternative, you'd think that the mainstream media would have a stake, would have a reason to make this, a lead story. Why do you think they haven't?
Well, in Britain, we saw they do have a stake, and their stake is on the wrong side. I mean, there's been enormous revelations about British media paying off the cops in order to spy on people, to hack their phones, to hack their voicemails, to get this data. If you're paying off the cops and are able to look at this stuff, who wouldn't want to have more data to be able to bribe the cops and buy? I'm sure there's a whole bunch of British newspaper and television reporters who are just eager to write the stories they'll be able to write once they're able to get everyone's email subject lines.
Well, it is an interesting topic. We like to bring it up as much as possible here. We keep this story alive because it is an important one that affects every citizen in this country, and certainly a lot of those citizens in Great Britain, where this will most likely pass. Aaron Swartz, founder and executive director of Demand Progress. Thanks so much.